Bobby Jacobs. Oh, what a fun time with Bobby. I know Bobby for a little while, maybe about a year now, and he's in the tech space with a lot of the companies I work with. He is a leader in a startup company called Thread. They just won this great Pitch It competition through ConnectWise. I talked to Bobby about, he was at another startup and he came to this one. We talk about sales and small business, how so many small businesses, including managed service providers, MSPs, lack in sales. You know, they look at it as a dirty word and what they need. We also talk about the difference between management and leadership. I always enjoy having that discussion. But I start the conversation off. Bobby's from Houston, and he works with refugees that have been, that are there now from Afghanistan, from other countries, and it's a real, perspective when talking to a lot of the refugees, how wonderful people are, and unfortunately how governments don't always have the interest of their people in mind. But great conversation with Bobby Jacobs. Really, really love his perspective on going from, he left school, he went to was selling refurbished equipment, then went into this startup at Lion Guard there in Houston, then went over to this newer startup with Thread, where I got to know him a little bit better. We talk about the excitement that happens there and some of the pain that happens there. He's got a lot of great advice as well. But it's a great conversation with Bobby Jacobs. I know you're going to like it. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family, in their passion, in their careers, and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. So I will be having conversations with a lot of the coaches and the finalists from 2023, and just kind of talking about them a little bit and their solution in some future podcasts. We want to make kind of an introduction to that as well.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, like I said, as the years progress, more people are getting involved, and then back to these vendors looking for a way to create a name for themselves with consistency. They need people like you, which is why I'm so thrilled that you're willing to work with me and work with us on this. So you're going to be you've graciously accepted to host these, and I appreciate that. Where you'll interview all our contestants. You're also going to interview last year's head coaches, last year's judges, last year's finalists. So you're doing all that. And I think it's important, for if you're a vendor and you're watching these, take note of this and how you get more involved. Watch the program. Watch what these men and women are all doing with us, because they're doing a lot. That's how you grow your business. If you're an MSP, watch these things. Get to know who people are and then inquire, because you're all looking to have stack alignment and you're all looking for credible and reputable businesses. We're vetting them out for you. We're putting them on display for you. Watch them, ask questions, find out, do your due diligence. Don't wait until IT Nation Connect to see you like at a booth and then buy 5 or 6 different technologies that you don't need.
So 2024, Pitch It, ConnectWise Pitch It. What's new and exciting about it?
Oh my Lord. So for those that have not followed any of this, I took over the Pitch It program 2 years ago, and we've had such great success, with like really great success. And went from it's become one of the most predominant programs in the space now. Matter of fact, I was doing some research the other day, and about 5 or 6 other pitching things have spun off from mine
Wow.
and from ConnectWise Pitch It, with other people that are running it. So it's great to see, because I think it's the thing about Pitch It is it's all about innovation. It's all about being daring and willing to do things, right. I mean, as an entrepreneur, it's a scary situation. You have to be ignorantly optimistic, and you have to be willing to maybe fail a lot more than you'll succeed, and you have to have very thick skin, but you
Mm.
always have to be innovative and creative. So it's nice to see that this has spun off into other groups that have started doing it, because I think the hardest challenge for most startup vendors is getting their name out there, right? Getting people to know that they exist. And the reality of it is, you can't just be there one time. You have to show consistency. You have to be in there for the long haul,
Mm.
for the partners to really be able to, for you to establish credibility, right? Because there's been plenty of fly by night businesses that have came out big and gone in 6 months. And for partners, their whole business is built around these vendors, these products. So they're making lifelong business decisions off of these.
Mm.
So it's great, it's exciting, but back to the program itself, it's jumped leaps and bounds. It went from being just a competition where they picked a few people, a few really good product companies to pitch at live at IT Nation Connect, to where we turn into an accelerated incubator program for. It's a season. It's literally a competitive season now at this point.
Mm.
And went from 5 or 7 or maybe even 10 vendors that are involved until they narrowed down to 3. To 2 years ago was 18. Last year was 26.
Wow.
And we had way more applications than that. That was just the ones that we thought were the best fit.
Hmm.
So yeah, we're getting ready to put out the press release in a couple of days, because then the application process will start February 1st. So I recommend anybody from around the entire globe to apply. We've had over just last year alone 6 different countries represented, between the U.S., Canada, to Israel, to Australia, to New Zealand, to the U.K. They all involved in this competition.
Bobby Jacobs, I'm so excited. So excited to talk to you. So excited to talk to you. Thanks so much for your time this morning. Why why should we help and really pay attention to the refugees in our country?
Love the start, Joe. Thanks for having me here today. Love being here. Yeah, I mentioned I do some work with Houston Welcomes Refugees. I'm based in Houston. Really awesome organization. You know, the refugees that I've gotten to work with through Houston Welcomes Refugees are some of the most amazing people I've met.
Mm.
A lot. I personally have gotten to spend a lot of time with a lot of people from Afghanistan, from Afghans,
Wow.
in the past few years. And man, these people will be like doctors, lawyers,
Mm.
day laborers, really impressive people, whatever their profession is. Um, and they just left everything, went
Wow.
to Germany, Paris, wherever it is, different places for periods of time, and then it ended up in the U.S., where typically at a fort somewhere, came to Houston. Now they're in a new apartment. It's taking a long time to get benefits, and they still are the most like loving, excited
Mm.
people.
Mm.
Every time I hang out with my refugee friends, I leave so full.
Mm.
Like I didn't eat all of the food that they served me, and they don't have a lot, right?
Mm.
So maybe long-winded answer to say like, there's just incredible people out there that have been through some incredibly hard things beyond their control,
Mm.
and at least in the U.S., in cities like Houston and big cities that have a lot of people coming there from all different cultures, it's just so easy. Like it takes a few hours of time, and you can like drastically change someone's life
Mm.
experience
Mm.
in ways that they don't have the ability to.
It's so unfortunate, Bobby, how we see time and time again that people are wonderful, but it's the governments that are just suck, right? We see that in Iran, we see that in Afghanistan, we see in all these countries where just the people are wonderful and just, like you said, beyond their control, right? And it's just they get displaced and but their souls, they're wonderful, and it gives you some perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it gives you a lot of perspective. Like the things that can change someone's life is like a bicycle or,
Mm.
some groceries or something. And again, like these are people that had swimming pools and multiple cars and like all kinds of things, and to
Hmm.
stay positive and keep moving on. And the people I get to hang out with, they didn't choose America specifically. They weren't like, oh, I love speaking English, I want to go speak more English,
Hmm.
right? Like it's not their primary language, if a language that they have skills in at all. And just the positivity and the resilience. I was looking at some of the other podcasts you've done, and I know like resilience and drive and a lot of these topics. Like, man, when I look at the state that a lot of these people are in and the drive that they have to keep going, it's nothing compared to like what I watch influencers on TikTok say, like, oh, do an
Mm.
ice bath every morning, or like how I'm thinking about work. It's like, yeah, those are good things and it helps me,
Yoga.
but it's nothing compared to what they're doing.
Yeah, you get that you get that perspective, don't you? I have spent some time overseas, and just to see how people live differently, we're just kind of so set here in the States. We're very, very fortunate. What they say, the embryo sweepstakes, right? We just kind of
Yeah.
we're just kind of born here, and we're very, very fortunate. Certainly there's people in our country who need help. But uh, that perspective, especially from some, those people are just so loving, and they're here. Now, when you say they don't necessarily want to be here, why are they here?
Afghanistan specifically, there was, massive wars, really terrible things
Right.
happening. Their houses were exploded. They were, their lives were at risk. And so, they just took planes out that the government was providing to wherever they could go.
Wow.
And a lot of them spent a year in other countries first. And then I don't know all the political reasons of how
Mm,
they
mm,
specifically ended up in the US. Um, like maybe I don't want to say that they didn't want to come to the US. I'm sure once they started to get displaced, it was a good option, but it's not like they like always wanted to come to America and move to America.
mm,
Like
mm.
they had lives that they loved in the countries they were in.
It's so unfortunate. And so the program you work with knows about the refugees and has get-togethers and meetups and dinners and things like that. It's very cool.
Yeah, it is cool. I've learned a little bit about how the government works and stuff. In Houston, at least, the YMCA partners with the federal government
Uh,
to handle a lot of the refugees and the resources, and uh, rents apartment complexes and all types of
hmm,
things. And so Houston Welcomes Refugees partners with the YMCA. So we find out about new families that are coming, and try to assign a team of people to a family for a period of time to help them get set up with doctors and Social Security and Medicare, and maybe not Social Security. Again, I'm not a government
right,
expert,
right.
but I've
Neither
definitely
am
helped
I.
people set their Medicare up and get
Mm,
enrolled in schools and all these types of things that are hard for me to do for them. Having filed taxes and stuff here for a long time, like
mm,
it's a lot of hard things. A lot of times they don't end up getting food stamps for a couple of weeks, so there's just a lot of things like
oof,
um, that we can cover the gap for pretty easily and
mm,
just help their experience be a lot better.
hmm. No, that's God, that's wonderful, and it's so fulfilling. It helps everybody. It helps you. It helps them. So you started selling used compact equipment with your entrepreneur undergrad degree. Tell me what that was like.
That's right. Yeah, it's definitely a part of me getting to work with MSPs and IT providers today. Yeah, yeah. I studied entrepreneurship. Was told I could go start or buy any company I wanted when I was 20 years old, and I learned some good things in school. I had a lot of opportunities at University of Houston, really great entrepreneurship program, but I definitely needed some real world experience. Got connected through a mentor of mine to a guy who had a company that had sold refurbished HP products for decades. It used to be a really lucrative business. HP and compacts, Houston company, so a lot of opportunity there. Over time, I think these massive companies like HP have figured out what to do with
Mm,
their reused products, and so this guy's business was not going as well. I came in, it was basically a failing company, but I got to meet all of these people in IT A lot of stuff was done over AIM. It was brokering parts and part numbers, but I learned how to build servers and get hands on with some things, and it's a great opportunity for me. I ended up leaving to join a kind of a startup accelerator in Houston that LionGuard, a company in the IT MSP space, launched out of. And so it was a really great trajectory for me to get some quick, dirty, hands-on work, see a bunch of people get fired around me, uh,
Mm,
customers tell me how good my company used to be, still sell some stuff, learned a ton. The 6 months I spent there feels like 4 years. Like
mm,
even companies I'm at now, I feel like I spent longer in those first
mm,
6 months.
mm.
But I think when you're new at a job, you just learn a lot really fast, especially when you're young in your career. I don't know what specific advice I can pull out of that. If I don't want to tell people like go find a terrible job for your
Mm.
first job, but um, the access and the learnings that I had there were pretty cool, and I found that I liked IT. I just wanted to not necessarily sell refurbished products all the time.
Plus, the good thing about that, Bobby, is that you were selling. People, the youth needs to sell because we are constantly selling, and it's got a
The youth
dirty.
needs to sell.
Yes, don't they?
Man, get that tattooed. I love it. That is
because
awesome.
because we sell all the time, and it's got a dirty, especially in the tech world. The tech led companies think sales is a dirty thing, like the whole
Yeah.
used car salesman has damaged the whole sales profession, and just selling anything. I mean, we're just constantly selling. So I just need to get used to it. So you meet Joe and Vin over there at LionGuard. Love those guys, and it's a startup there. And what was that like?
Yeah, it was incredible. So I got to work at the startup accelerator for a couple years, and got to work with a lot of really great investors and entrepreneurs. And Joe and Vin from LionGuard were there, starting a new company. Cybersecurity at the time, kind of shifted into more documentation for MSPs over time. Um, I knew I wanted to get into software, so
Mm,
I was at a point where I was ready to transition to my next thing. LionGuard was really starting to take off. They went from one customer to 10. I came in around 30 or 40, um, and got to be really hands on the ground my first software sales job, um, and got to be a part of some really, really cool stuff. And, I mentioned when I was 20, I was told I could go start any company I wanted. The more I work with great founders, the more I learn that it's really, really hard and how bad that advice was. Like the
mm,
more I work with great people and see founders, the more I see how much work goes into it. Not necessarily expertise. Like I don't think every founder knows everything out of the gate, but there's a lot of work, a lot of learning on the go, and getting to be a part of that ride. I was first 10 employees. We were fastest growing company in Houston a couple years in a row. Um,
mm,
got to go to a lot of conferences. That was a big thing for
mm,
me. Getting to, meet a lot of people
mm,
in the MSP space. What I love about this industry that we're in, the MSP space for companies that provide IT support, um, is that it's people are really down to earth. It's a lot of small business. So you'll
mm,
be at the bar with 10 business owners. Some of them will be from massive software companies, some will have 10 employees. But the people that you're getting to rub shoulders with and sell products to and help are just really cool people who have a high tolerance for risk and are doing just great things
mm. How
like
much is
yourself.
Yeah, well, thank you. How much is relationship building in sales to you?
Yeah, it depends. In the SMB space, frankly, it's not quite as important
Mm,
on a like per sale basis because we have a quick sales cycle.
mm,
So it's not like like, if you're selling an enterprise software solution, you're probably spending years closing a deal. And then it's really about relationship and getting deep into ROI. And what we do, it's pretty straightforward. We try to help people understand the ROI and the value really quickly. And so we might have someone that we talk to and they sign up that same day. So
hmm,
maybe I had a great time on Zoom with them for 45 minutes and I got to know them. But the reality is they're signed up, they're going to start using our product. It's
mm,
not a complex sales process. Um, that being said, I still think relationships are really important,
yeah.
but I think there's a few variables there. One is like your key stakeholders, maybe your customer board, or I'm thinking of the right terminology, but like your customers who work super closely with you and giving you feedback, and maybe you're speaking with you at conferences. Um, Being in person with people is huge. That's where I think
Mm,
relationships really, really come in. And one thing I love about the space is people really want to learn. So people go to a lot of conferences, a surprising amount, as you know.
yeah.
And so being able to be there in person with people, I think, is where I love the relational side of it.
Hmm. Yeah, SaaS platforms generally want a lot of things to be transactional, where there's not a lot of relationship building. But
Yeah.
with the managed service providers, with the MSPs, which are small to medium businesses that do, of course, IT support, it's just such a community, and they've been burned so many times by some vendors coming in and then leaving or trying to steal their clients. So, a
Yeah.
lot of them lean heavy on the relationship, hoping that, it can last longer. Plus with the really big shift in the last couple of years of customer success, where we see, these customer success people have, they want, their goal is retention, testimonials, referrals, they want to keep the clients on and happy, so to extend that kind of relationship. I want to change the kind of focus of sales being dirty into just being relationships. Just
Yeah.
we see each other, we can talk, or we can have a drink, or we can eat, or whatever, and just talk cordially because we're using each other's platforms, and it's helping both of us.
Yeah, I mean, I love what I do, but I didn't grow up wanting to sell stuff, right?
Right.
Like, I think a lot of salespeople can tell you stories about what they were selling when they were 8 years old and 12
Mm,
years old and
mm,
had some
mm,
side hustles and stuff. But even then, it's not like I was like, oh, I love selling lemonade and t-shirts. Now I'm gonna love selling stuff my whole life.
mm.
Um, because it's just not something you think about. John Barrows, sales influencer, has a really great book called I Want to Be in Sales When I Grow Up,
Yeah.
which I would recommend people definitely check out that book. It's like $5 on Amazon. Um, because it's kind of shifting that narrative of sales is one of the best ways to help people.
Yeah.
Like, I get to help our customers and partners every single day, and I love this industry because they're protecting the world and enabling the world. Supporting small businesses to be protected, not go out of business, not get ransomware, but also to be way more efficient, to help people do their best work. I have friends that work at Fortune 500 companies, and they'll go work out for an hour while their computer updates or while
Mm,
they're waiting for a file to load,
mm,
right? And these are highly paid people. Like, think about how much loss is happening there. Um, People are not doing their best work because they're not working with the right type of technology. So the fact that I get to help people have a better work experience and ultimately help the world because people are more efficient and having a
mm.
better time, that's how I think about sales. Now, if I was selling a product that killed people, I probably couldn't think about it the same way, right? But ideally, you're selling a cool product.
Yeah, and I want MSPs, small businesses, I ask many people when I talk to them, MSPs, what percentage of these businesses do you think have an effective sales engine? If I were to ask you that, what would you think of the answer would be for MSPs?
Man, I go to a lot
Percentage.
of conferences solely focused around helping MSPs sell more. So I don't want to 20%
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, you're being very modest there. I appreciate that. I never hear more than 10. Of course, I hear 20 when you're trying to be polite. And that's the thing. And because these are your customers and your friends. And yeah, and I want them to hear it. How about this? Don't sell, make an environment in which it's easy to buy. You
Yeah,
know, they're so tech led that they just go in with features. That's another problem. What is the old phrase? Don't sell the drill, sell the hole, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
don't sell features, sell value. Nike says, you know, uh, be the best athlete you can be. It
yeah,
doesn't say we have the best shoelaces, the best, whatever. There's the going. It just says be the best. So it's a big difference. Sell value, not features,
yeah.
and I think it'll help.
Especially in IT, if you're like, oh, I have this server with this really with then the
Yeah.
RAID's this and this is
Yes.
how it works. It's like, what? I don't
Who
even know
cares?
how to turn my laptop on.
Who
Like,
cares?
yeah. So it's about the outcomes and the value for sure. Yeah, and I think so many people, because sales is kind of a scary concept. They're
Yeah.
like, oh, if I just build something great, people will buy it. And I
Mm.
think Apple is one of the only companies that that's true for, right? Like if Apple builds something new, it's going to be, the biggest company in the world on its own. They've put a lot of work into making that happen. But almost anything else, you have to educate people on it. You have
Yeah.
to help them understand why it's valuable. I think so many people have this concept or this idea of like, it's like slimy or tricking people or
Mm.
misleading somebody. But if you have a product that does good things that you say it does, then you're just educating people.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of things out there that I don't know I would need. My wife convinced me to do a diet this month and I felt great and I lost a lot of weight. But she had to convince me to. I wasn't like, "Oh, sign me up. I can't
Yeah.
wait to like not eat all the stuff I want to eat." But she sold me on it and it's been awesome.
Yeah, it's very true. Sales. And when I talk to MSPs these days, I hear the same. I ask what's keeping you up, and they say the same three things they've been saying for a while. First is security. They're worried about, their clients getting attacked. Second is staffing. They're worried about, their techs leaving, how they're going to replace. And then third is just growth. How am I supposed to grow? And
Yep.
you're not going to grow people without sales. Now there are big MSPs that are still referral based, and God bless them. They're going to get to it, but there's going to be to a certain point where organically you're just going to need to sell and be outbound, and try to get more clients interested in the great benefits that you offer. Now you're into you went from Lion Guard into Thread, and you're very, very. It's a great product, and you're more in the management leadership role there. What's the difference in your eyes between being a leader and being a manager?
Huh. Yeah, it's not something that I thought a lot about. I think inherently, everyone can be a leader. I
Mm,
think that's one of the biggest things. Like when I was titles are a big thing to people, mainly because on LinkedIn, people are going to look at what your titles were
right.
previously. So, if you're at a startup and you're doing all types of incredible leadership and building stuff out, but your title is sales development representative, it's hard to encapsulate like, oh, but I was also building our marketing and I was building our conference strategy and I was actually doing customer success too. Like you can talk about that in an interview,
Mm,
but you want the title that represents those things. But I think because that's the reality, you're able to lead in tons of ways, especially at smaller organizations. Um, you're almost required to lead. That's something that I spend a lot of time with our team, especially with new employees, is like forcing them to lead. It's like, we
mm,
want your opinion. Like, you're telling me something. Why haven't you told the person that directs more effect or affects more directly that thing? Like,
mm,
let's expedite this. Yeah, sure, maybe I'm your manager, but like, you have authority here. You have the ability to make an impact. In fact, we expect you to make an impact. Like, if you're not talking about the things that you think should change, then you're not bringing as much value as you could bring. And so, and not every organization works that way, and I'm not perfect at it. I definitely talk out of both sides of my mouth. I'm like, hey, why did you say that, right? But I think if you come in with a mindset of I can make an impact, like my thoughts are valuable, as long as I'm not being an asshole, like I can
mm,
share with people on things that I think should change. I think that's how you start to lead. And then I think that that's a way you can lead. And that's how you lead more.
hmm,
Like at Lion Guard, I had incredible opportunities to lead and I had some leadership titles and such, but I made a big jump title wise going to this role at Thread. But I'm doing a lot of the things I had gotten exposure to and been able to do at Lion Guard because they gave me opportunities and I naturally stepped in to some voids there.
hmm.
Um, so initially, when you asked that question, I was like, that sounds like a loaded question. And then I realized I had a lot of thoughts around it. So
Mm.
appreciate it. Great question, Joe.
Yeah, I've had managers before that thought they were leaders, and they weren't. I kind of look at it as managers, kind of day to day. You have goals to set. You make sure you hit all the metrics. Whereas the leader is looking forward, where are we going to, in which direction. Sometimes
Hmm.
they could be the both, but it's kind of big picture. And a lot of times with small medium businesses, MSPs, I don't see the difference there. I just kind of see a lot of management and kind of lack, and not always,
Yeah.
but just sometimes lacking a little forward. And what, when they come to the shows, right? They come see you at, at the big events that we have. Hopefully they're looking at some tools or collaborating with other MSPs and kind of getting some ideas for the future. But they're putting out a lot of fires. It's not. I'm not pointing the finger. They're getting very reactive. They're putting out fires, and it's tough to run a small business. But it must be very exciting there at Thread in these new days. I always, when I do see you, you're dressed as a pirate.
I do try to dress up as a pirate as much as I can. I have a new costume getting delivered tomorrow. We're
Ah,
going to the NerdioCon conference in the Dominican
sure.
Republic.
Dominican Republic, yeah.
Where better to be a pirate? I do dress up as a pilot sometimes.
I see a pilot
We're
too. Yes.
kind of retiring that a little bit.
Yeah,
Got my
yeah,
headset here. I
yeah.
would normally wear on a webinar, but we are more pirates than we are pilots. So, um, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's certainly the early days, big picture. We've grown hundreds of percentages, four or
Yeah.
500% since I've been here. It's easy to do those percentages when you're really small, right?
Mm,
But man, we're working with hundreds of MSPs now, getting lots of feedback, growing up a lot, and I think providing some really great value. Meeting your customers where they are
mm,
is just such a fun concept to build around because it's all about allowing people to do their best work. We are talking about that, especially in the MSP space. It's ironic because in some ways it's like the leading edge of IT, but because it's SMB and because the systems that people in this industry use are very specific, often technology is getting here very late.
mm.
So it's an enterprise first. People are selling technologies for millions of dollars, and then by the time it gets to the SMB, MSP space, it takes a little bit. And
Hmm.
so there's a big opportunity to give these MSPs a better experience. Death by refresh is a phrase that
Hmm.
resonates. Like if you just go to an MSP and or a technician and you're like, "Hey, does your day feel like death by refresh?" They're gonna be
Hmm.
like, "Oh my God, I spend so much time waiting on the
Hmm.
tools I use. Like I don't dislike the tool inherently, but it just is really hard to use." And so, that's a lot of the pirate costume. When we dress up as pirates because we hate tickets, we
Right.
want to change the way that people work. The problem is that tickets are used for communication and they're not meant for communication. Like
Hmm.
no one likes getting a ticket, waiting in line, paying crazy amounts of money for tickets with all types of fees on top of them. And so we say death to the ticket. We kill tickets. The outcome of that is creating magical experiences. So long-winded way to say it's a lot of fun.
So for those who don't know, what is a ticket?
Yeah, so tickets can be a lot of things. We actually have on our site kind of the history of a ticket. If you go to getthread.com and click death to the ticket, we go through the history of a ticket. Um, Tickets are commonly used for support requests, right? Like if you need help with something you bought from Best Buy or somewhere, you're probably going to go open a support ticket and you're going to get emailed a response. Man, I ordered a grill over Christmas that I was pretty excited about. It didn't work very well. I opened a support ticket. Or first, I spent like 30 minutes on the phone with this
Wow.
company waiting. Then they finally answered. Then they told me they were going to solve my problem. As soon as we got off the phone, I got an email that my ticket was open. 2 minutes later, I got an email that my ticket was closed
Ah.
and nothing was solved. And then I just gave up. I was like, all right, I'm just not going to get this fixed. It was just a terrible experience. Like I had to check my email for these tickets. There was like no good information in it. I didn't actually know how to get back in touch with them. And so it's just not a communication method.
Hmm.
Tickets and the support perspective, at least, are meant for logging information. If you're providing, if a lawyer is providing time that they're billing on, they're typically logging their time on a ticket. Um, they're not meant for communication. They're not meant for humans and to experience, to keep working to allow people to do their best work. And so that's why we want to kill them. We want to put them in the background, but we say death to the ticket and help people do the work better.
Yeah, people don't realize if you're not in the industry that you're using tickets all the time. When you start a session with, like you say, when you buy something or you have a problem with your bill or, a ticket is created, everything's recorded there. But you're saying that a lot of two times. A lot of oftentimes I know my MSP did. We just focus so much on the ticket itself and what gets put
Hmm.
in there. So you're saying more of get away from being caught up in the ticket and get more reactive, proactive, and actually solving the problem.
Yeah, and I can't just go to someone and say, "Hey, you should treat people better and stop using tickets."
Right.
Because you need process. Like tickets are there really to enforce process and give people a way to do the things that need to be done, like logging information, right? If someone told me that they were going to fix my grill, but they didn't write it down anywhere, then the next person I talk to isn't going to have any clue what happened. Which is why a ticket can be helpful. If they wrote it down and they opened it the right way and passed that ticket to someone else on their team and then they saw what was happening, that's where it starts to be helpful, but it's just really clunky, like writing down what happened and passing it, and then I have a ticket number and I don't know who I'm working with.
Mm.
If we can automate those things so the ticket exists for what it needs to, which is really just a data compository of things that have happened, then the humans can work more naturally. And that's what we're doing. Like when we're allowing people to meet their customers where they work and chat and talk naturally, and things are just logging on the ticket, we use AI to write time entries. You click a button that's going to summarize everything that we've already logged on the ticket. It's just automating the work that people have to do in a human centric way that makes sense. It
Hmm.
doesn't mean that I'm going to go open a chat and talk to an AI chatbot and just say, let me talk to somebody, let me talk to somebody, and have a bad experience. Um, that's not the way that we want to automate tickets to death.
Mm.
Maybe when we get to a place where the AI is crazy intuitive and can actually solve all your problems right away, great. Today, we're focused on helping that technician be able to just serve customers and work the way they want to work, and in turn allowing that end user to be where they want to be. So, for
Hmm.
example, most a lot of people today are spending their time in collaboration tools, Microsoft Teams, Slack, whatever that is, but you can't get support from your IT team in Teams or Slack unless they break their process and start messaging you in Teams. All of a sudden, nothing's on the ticket.
Hmm.
So that's a big thing that we do is we allow the end user to talk to their IT provider through Teams. Everything gets logged on the ticket. I can keep working how I'm working. I message my IT provider, I message someone else on my team, having this natural flow while I'm getting the support I need. I think everyone's had a bad time on someone's website chatting and the chat crashes and you have to start over. And, um, there's just a lot of bad experiences out there today. It's not hard to find them.
Yeah, there certainly is. And you were part of the big ConnectWise pitch it. In fact, not just part of it. You're the winner, 2023. What was that process like? I was there for, for the final there where you're up on stage, and that was great. Well, from from my perspective, it was great, and my goodness, it was a wonderful event for you.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, ConnectWise, one of the biggest companies in our industry, puts on a startup accelerator basically for new software vendors in the space, and they call it Pitch It, and it culminates with three finalists pitching on stage in person at a massive conference called IT Nation, and then the winner gets 70 grand and all this marketing and accolades, and it's really awesome. What doesn't get talked about a lot though is the actual 4 months of
Mm,
classes and
mm,
resources and connections that happen in Pitch It. So we had sometimes twice a week calls with big names in the industry. Maybe they're giving us marketing insight, talking about how to raise funding, how to build your product right, how to work with MSPs, all kinds of really great classes and such. And so, just being a part of that as an early stage company, it's hard to have time to do everything you need to do.
mm.
And so by bringing everyone together, I think it was like 27 different startups, getting to collaborate with them, do webinars, build integrations, being able to connect with all these big names and influencers in the industry. And then ultimately just getting to get our name out there. Like they scheduled a ton of webinars for us. They helped us do a lot of marketing for all the attendees or companies in the program, and then ultimately winning and getting 70K and all the other stuff. That's great too. But yeah, props to ConnectWise. It's a super cool deal.
Yeah, you were up on stage, the 3 finalists, you all presented, there was 3 judges, and, it was really cool format, the way I think it's 2nd or 3rd year they've done it. It's really, really, really cool program, and ConnectWise going full board this year as well. It's going to be great. What advice do you have for startups?
Yeah, if you don't know the industry that you're trying to get into, right? Like maybe you have an insight of, oh, the trash space needs a tool like this, but I've never actually worked in waste
Mm,
management
mm,
or trash, then you need to know your industry intimately. Like I think that is super important. And that's one thing that Pitch It does really well. Like if you're a software vendor who maybe is pivoting to work with MSPs or is building something for MSPs, but you haven't run an MSP like yourself, you need to know the industry very thoroughly. And that's a huge thing that Pitch It provides. Um, if you know your industry, we come out of an MSP. I've worked at MSP vendors and such. Um, from there, man, there's so much advice you can give. I think
mm,
listening to your customers and partners and not thinking you know everything, especially that's like the flip side is we've worked at MSPs. We know some of the problems we're solving. If we think we just know how to do everything, probably not going to go super well. So
mm,
our partners give us awesome feedback, sometimes super critical. And we need to listen to it. We need to filter it. Can't build every single thing everybody wants, right? Um, so that's hard. But I think having your ear to the ground and learning quickly, that it's tough, especially for a founder who has had this insight, risked everything, put a bunch
mm,
of their own money into it, raised some funding, quit their job, and then to hear like, oh, what I was thinking isn't what people need.
mm,
That can be tough. And you're going to hear that in some way. Like the
mm.
chances of you just having this insight and building this perfect thing out of the gate is almost zero, right?
Listen to your customer. It's very humbling being an entrepreneur. Very humbling because, yeah, like you said, sometimes you think you know what they want, but they'll tell you what they want.
Joe, I'm
Bobby,
sure you've seen that
yeah,
through a bunch
absolutely.
of the
Yeah.
different organizations that you've built. I don't know if I'm allowed to interview you, but I would love to hear a story about like something that you were building that you thought was perfect and then like needed to pivot because of feedback.
Well, we built an internal product that we needed internally, and then my peer group told me to bring it to market. When I did, I thought, the way I was doing it, but they said, no, we do it this way. So you have to kind of mold it around and, so it's a little different, but it's very, you just have to listen to your customers. Bobby, what's the difference between a kayak and a canoe?
Man, great transition. I don't know the definition. I think that it's you sit on top of a kayak and you sit. No, that can't be it because you can sit in a kayak. I think it's the shape of it. A canoe comes up and stops flat and is open, has a lot
Ah,
more space, and a kayak is you're either on top of it or you're inside of it and it encapsulates you.
let's see.
I think I think both of us could look at a kayak or a canoe and tell you which one it is.
I see.
Man, I would love to hear what the actual definition is. I don't know.
And why kayaking for you?
Man, I love being outside. I love
Mm,
water. Houston's not the most outdoorsy
mm,
city,
mm,
but we
mm.
do have some really great bayous, have some fun alligators that you can hang out with on the water. We're
Nice.
not that far from the ocean. So part of it is that there's just a lot of kayaking opportunity in Houston versus, we don't have a lot of mountains and those types of things. Um, but yeah, just being out there flat in the water and just gliding, it's uh
Mm.
it's a good time.
Off the grid, right? You're just listening to
Exactly.
nature. It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, you can also kayak right through the middle of Houston, which is a little
Is
surreal
that
under
right?
bridges and
Ah,
next to cars and but quickly those bayous go out into nature and
I
it's
say.
it's a nice mix.
So, Bobby, I mentioned that, I started my MSP in 93 and, I was working way too much. You're very familiar with this, 14, 16-hour days and wasn't eating properly, wasn't
Sure.
exercising. Before you know it, I got myself up to 340 pounds, and the doctor said to me, if I don't lose the weight, my daughter was just born, I'm not going to see her graduate. So I spent the next 7 months, lost about 130 pounds. People always
Crazy.
ask me how, yeah, uh, and you can't look at it as a finishing line either. You have to, you mentioned your diet this month, you lost weight. You have to continue with it. You just have
Yeah.
to continue with it. So people ask me how I did it. It's very tough to lose weight, and I always say discipline. I just got focused. I have a daughter, and I've got to take care of myself. And I always say discipline. I wonder how discipline plays a role in your life, Bobby Jacobs.
Yeah, it's probably something most people could always have more of. And I think, it's so hard to have discipline in all areas, right? I'm
Mm,
sure when you gained all that weight, I'm sure you had a lot of discipline in a lot of things you were doing, building a business,
yeah, good point.
right? You were probably serving your customers well and building a great product. And um, it's hard to focus on everything,
Hmm.
right? So I've been on a diet. I've been disciplined in that area. That's great. I think like from more of a work and how we do things at Thread. One of our core values is being radical, and I think
Hmm.
it sounds like a bit of an oxymoron to have discipline about being radical. But it is something we have to have discipline with to choose to be radical,
Hmm.
to when we're implementing something to say, how can we do this radically? Is this radical? Let's think about this in a radical way. And that's annoying, right?
Hmm.
It's a lot easier to just like do things the obvious way or the straightforward way. Um, but that's something that Mark, our CEO, is huge on. It has helped me have a lot more discipline around like asking our team, like, hey, you're going to send this email out. Great, let's do it a little more radically. Like, let's
Hmm.
send the subject line upside down. That's something that
Hmm.
that we did, and it annoyed some people, and it was pretty interesting. But we got a lot more engagement when we did that. And it's not just for the sake of being annoying or different, um, but I think it's to help us progress faster. If you're challenging and doing things more radically and more intense, it's also just a part of our culture and our brand. Death to the ticket. We
Hmm.
want to change the game, and we think it's being radical is an important piece of that because things have been done the same way with tickets and processes and in a lot of ways in the MSP space, everyone works one of a few ways.
Hmm.
And so to make a big impact, we need to be radical. We have to have discipline around that. Like if we're
Hmm.
radical one time, I think a lot of people are radical a few times, right? But to be consistently radical, um,
Hmm.
it's been surprisingly difficult to just continue to do it over and over. And I think something that's helped me be disciplined is a culture of it and other
Hmm.
people on the team being disciplined. Because,
Hmm.
and I'm sure, like, if you're hanging out with a bunch of friends and they're all eating burgers and wings every night of the week, it's going to be really hard to stick to your diet. Doesn't mean you can only hang out with people that only eat healthy,
Hmm.
but I think the culture of whatever you're doing helps a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have this ongoing thesis that discipline is a spectrum, and I have about 10 elements around it. But you mentioned things like control, kind of restraint, direction, order, strictness. The term radical is very interesting, though. When I hear radical, I just think a kind of against the norm. It's a good term.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been cool. It was uncomfortable for me. I didn't
Mm,
I didn't start a company with a core value of radical. I
right.
got to join one, and
Adopt
it's
it.
that
Yeah.
that's why we wear pirate hats and
Hmm.
do all these things that might seem silly on their own. But we go back to sales and helping people. Being radical helps us get in front of more people and work with people faster and ultimately help more people. Um, it's been pretty cool. But the discipline, being radical is a place where we definitely have to have discipline.
Hmm.
On the flip side of it, when we're being radical, there's times where it's like, okay, that's maybe too radical.
Mm.
That's not appropriate, or whatever those things are. Like we have other core values that keep us in check some. And so I think having discipline to stay true to your core values, I think that's something that is really hard for most companies. Like, does
Hmm.
everyone know your core values? Like, it's hard to have discipline around things that you don't know.
Yeah, well said. When you were in school, you considered the ministry at one point. How important is spirituality in your life, Bobby?
Yeah, it's big for me for sure. I'm very involved in my church and community. Actually doing a college level course with my wife right now called Perspectives, which talks about like God's perspective on
Oh.
the world. Um, It's a big deal. I'm being radical and uh when we talk about, discipline or culture, I push people pretty hard. I try to
Mm,
push myself hard, and keeping that in check and in line with like who I want to be, and my views from a spiritual perspective are not at odds, but it can, you know, just got to keep yourself in check and have discipline around those things.
mm,
But yeah, my faith is certainly important to me. Love talking about it. Another thing, being a person with people is just super fun to get to have those conversations that, if you're on Zoom for 45 minutes, you're probably not going to get into the things that you care most about. But when
mm.
you're at the bar with people at conferences and such, uh, you just get to know people more and get into that stuff.
Yeah, it's always impressive to me that people have a spiritual side, and we really don't talk about it. We're always afraid to talk about religion and politics, but I think spirituality is separate from religion. That's the way I look at it. It's just your relationship with your higher being and how you work. But I like that you keep that. It's right there in LinkedIn. You keep that right up front. It shows your character. It's very impressive. Bobby Jacobs, what motivates you?
Hmm. Yeah, my faith is certainly a big part of it. I want to love people well, and I'm a Christian, so a lot of things that tie back to that. Um, I love just being a part of building cool stuff, like
Mm,
being at Lion Guard, being at Thread, getting to help people in new ways. I haven't, been a part of huge organizations, so I can't say whether or not I would enjoy, working at a massive company with an established product.
mm.
But I know that I love helping build new products and discovering new things, creating new things. It's yeah, it's just super motivating to I feel really lucky that I love what I do. I don't I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Mm,
I knew I wanted to build stuff, but didn't know what that looked like. And so, yeah, getting to wake up and like not necessarily know what the day is going to hold, even if my calendar's full, and
mm,
create stuff. What Thread is right now, in some ways, is on the same trajectory and path and vision that we've had, but it's certainly like the way that our tool looks right now isn't how we thought it would look 6 months
mm,
ago, and
mm.
that's good, right? Like if we know everything already, then we're probably not building something that cool. So yeah, it's just getting to help people by building new stuff.
Seems like learning is a big part of your life.
Yeah, that's probably right. I think a lot about my dad got, extra master's degrees when he was working, and as a kid I always thought it was so silly that it was like it's not even directly, he worked in NASA, which is really cool.
Oh, wow.
But he got a degree in environmental science as a second master's while he had a full-time job, and that degree didn't directly relate to his job.
Mm,
And he was always just huge on learning and living a lifestyle of that. And at the time, I was big on figuring out how to cheat on my math test and was not trying to learn everything I could. And I think like as a teenager, I fundamentally disagreed with his view, and now it's just so humbling to be doing a college level course for fun now myself, and trying to learn in different ways, realizing that I think he had the right perspective.
mm. So how do you measure success?
Hmm. There's easy ways too, especially in sales, which is a fun thing about sales. Is did you hit your goal? Did you hit your quota? Did you sell as much as you were supposed to? Was your churn low? Um, the those are cool numbers because especially since we have month-to-month contracts, it keeps us pretty honest on like that should also mean you're providing value and those types of things. So that's a big thing in the sales world and success. Like, are you in startup? Just are you growing the way that you want to grow? Which means are you helping people the way that you want to help people?
Mm,
Um, Relationships are a big thing. A lot of my best friends I've met through the workplace, and um, we talk about conferences, go to a lot of shows, hang out with a lot of the same people, which
mm,
is a lot of fun. So if I wasn't building relationships and those types of things, I probably would not consider that successful. So the flip side of that
mm.
is I think building relationships is a measure of success for sure. Those are probably the two main areas off the top of my head.
It's wonderful that, you make a product and everybody wants to talk about sales and quantities, but I mean, at the end of the day, you're actually helping the small business because you're helping the MSP that's helping the small business grow. So it kind of rolls down. It's got to be rewarding when you make something like that could help lots of people.
Yeah, it is. On the flip side, if you're convincing people to change the way they're working and do something differently, and you drop the ball, or there's a bug, or you don't do something that you need to do,
Mm.
or you said you would do, people can certainly get pretty frustrated,
Yeah, yeah.
rightfully so, which keeps you honest. So, it's not always sunflowers and daisies and awesome, but I
Certainly
think
not.
but
Yeah.
I think that's what's good about it is if you're making an impact and fostering change, it's going to be some hard learnings along the way.
Mm. Bobby, thank you so much. I was really excited about this. I'm glad we set it up. Anybody that's listening, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn, Bobby Jacobs. Got a pirate hat on. If you see me there, my email is bobby@getthread.com. Thread is getthread.com. Yeah, love to connect. If it's about MSP space, getting plugged in, early job stuff. I love the youth should be selling. That is
Mm.
that is my favorite quote from this Joe. Um,
Yeah.
so love to connect.
Thanks so much, Bobby. I really appreciate your time today. I look forward to seeing you again, maybe in the Dominican Republic. I think I'm going to go. We'll see. But you have a great day. Be well. Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.